I was born Wong Ho Long in Gamham village, Sunning district, Guangdong province. When I first come to Riverside, there were pretty close to 3,000 of us scattered all over Riverside, working the groves, picking orange, working the packing houses, cooks, one at the Victoria Country Club. Now they're all gone. The postmaster one time refused to deliver mail to Chinatown. He says, there's no such street. I said, you used to come by here? You still remember Chinatown? He said, oh no, that's old style. I said, all the landmarks not going to change overnight. You never forget those old fellows when they all still live. Now they're all gone.
China, 19th century Guangdong province. The canals and levees have fallen into disrepair. The West River breaks through everywhere, yet the rice paddies wither. Under the pressure of foreign governments, the Qins have bled the country dry. They suppress all rebellion and dissent. Little by little, desperate inhabitants of Guangdong slip away to seek peace and prosperity, knowing that the penalty for leaving China is death. They make camp in Southeast Asia, Malaysia, the Philippines. In America, gold can be picked up in the streams. The most adventurous now begin to make their way there. They become Gum San Hak, guests of the Golden Mountain.
I got a foothold in Chinatown back in 1919. Property is still under name Wong Nim. See, in China, many years ago, we settled same district, my village across from Wong Nim's village. Well, Wong Nim, for years, he wanted me to take over everything. All he wanted from me was to give him $60 a month to support him. He was sick in bed. He tried to get up. He could not get up. He said, next day you come back. In the nighttime, he was dead.
(1848). Gold is discovered in California. 3 unsuspecting Chinese visitors arrive in San Francisco. Within days, 2 leave for the gold fields. The news travels fast. In 1849, 323 come. By 1851, there are 25,000 Chinese in California with a single purpose: to make their families' fortunes at the foot of the Golden Mountain. San Francisco. Village and kinship structures reconstitute themselves. Huiguans, mutual help societies, welcome the newcomer in his own dialect. He is temporarily absorbed, insulated, then most often sent on his way to the diggings. The nucleus of a community forms. Restaurants, laundries, and shops cluster around the center of town on DuPont Street. Block upon block fills with Chinese business. This is Little Canton, the first Chinatown in America.
Chinatown in the future. The northeast corner, that'd be a supermarket. The southeast corner, Standard Oil still has a lease. Put up the oil station. Back of Standard Oil station, I use for a parking lot and also Chinatown Street. I hope someday I put up a pagoda designed building for the export and the import. On the second floor, the restaurant. I keep all my old cars in the basement. The reason I keep my old cars, I didn't want the Japan get the scrap iron. The white men never care for anything as long as they got the dollar.
1848, the Mother Lode. There is enough gold for all. Americans, Germans, French, Chileans, Chinese work side by side. But the diggings grow crowded. Surface gold is harder to find. Greed infects the white miner. American Indians are the first to feel its impact. The blacks, Chileans, and the French are forced out. A $20 a month tax is imposed on foreign miners and enforced at gunpoint. The Chinese become its principal target. In the words of a tax collector, "I was sorry to stab the poor creature, but the law makes it necessary to collect the tax, and that's where I get my profit." The Chinese pay the tax. Driven from the richest claims, they work abandoned claims with remarkable success. But eventually all the surface placer deposits are exhausted.
The Great Stone Wall of China, built over 3,000 miles. A million men buried inside the wall died. Life don't mean nothing. The same as the Big Four built a railroad up California, the Central Pacific. 1,000 Chinamen died there too. You look that up. Life don't mean nothing. Hey, turn this off.
(1864). Charles Crocker faces a desperate labor shortage. After a year of track laying, the Central Pacific Railroad is only 31 miles on its way to a transcontinental connection. Crocker and his partners, Stanford, Huntington, and Hopkins, experiment with Mexican peons, captured Confederates, even common criminals. February 1865. Against all advice, 50 Chinese are given a trial at the railhead. Crocker insists that, quote, "the race that built the Great Wall can certainly build a railroad." The results confound the skeptics. Crocker's engineers, at first virulently anti-Chinese, pronounced them the best road builders in the world. Flung against the huge granite escarpments of the high Sierras, they tunnel through miles of solid rock. They live inside snowdrifts, emerging only to enter tunnels of granite or to be hung from baskets to set charges in the sheer cliffs. Crocker's pets calmly conquer a mountain chain. The Chinese build a railroad with hand tools and push carts. 1,200 sets of bones are shipped back to the land of their forefathers. Untold others remain buried in the mountains. As work on the railroad ebbed and flowed, the Chinese worker could always return to San Francisco's Chinatown, a city within a city, the capital of Golden Mountain, a state within a state. Chinatown, the center of the great Chinese manufacturing and service industries, cigars, overalls, and shoemaking, laundry and tailoring. It is an elaborate and complex culture, ruled over by the 6 companies, outgrowths of homeland district associations. This is a bachelor society. Sojourners whiling away the hours in eateries and gambling halls, or escaping their loneliness with opium. Marooned men marking time. For some, tradition and experience meld into a hybrid culture, part Chinese, part American. 1869. The Transcontinental Railroad is finished. San Francisco fills with men. In the labor glut that follows, the Chinese make convenient scapegoats. Sidewalk Ordinance, 1870, prohibits the use of poles to carry goods. Cubic Air Ordinance, 1870, requires 500 cubic feet of airspace per man in a lodging house. Q Ordinance, 1873. Every Chinese prisoner will have his queue cut off. Without it, a symbol of submission to Manchu rule, he will be put to death upon his return to China. Laundry Ordinance, 1873 and 1876. Laundries with 1 horse-drawn vehicle pay a $2 tax per quarter. 2 vehicles, $4. No vehicle, $15. Most Chinese laundries do not have vehicles. July 23, 1877, a mob ransacks Chinatown. Dennis Carney rides a wave of popularity on the slogan, "The Chinese must go." Samuel Gompers, president of the American Federation of Labor, writes that superior whites had to exclude the inferior Asiatics by law, or if necessary, by force of arms. The pressure from Western states grows so strong that the federal government passes the first of several exclusion acts, prohibiting immigration for 10 years. President Cleveland signs the bill into law, remarking that the blending of social habits and idiosyncrasies of the Chinese laboring class with those of the United States had been proved by experiment to be in every sense unwise, impolitic, and injurious to both nations. In 1892, the Chinese Exclusion Act is extended. In 1902, exclusion is made permanent.
The men are striking for wages. He assaulted me without provocation. He claimed my mine. He tries to extort money from me. He falsely accused me of stealing his watch. You have violated the constitution of this state. She's a good-for-nothing hussy. Can all people go to heaven? No one can go to heaven without being a Christian. The United States have many immigrants. The immigration will soon stop.
Angel Island, the Ellis Island of the West. Here, thousands of Chinese languished, waiting for their requests for admission to be processed, hoping in spite of the exclusion acts, hoping that their stories of fathers in America or businesses in China would be believed. They waited, and on the walls of the bunkhouses they wrote of that wait.
For what reason must I sit in this jail? It is because my country is weak and my family poor. My parents wait in vain for news. My wife and child, wrapped in their quilt, sigh with loneliness. Even if I'm allowed to enter this country, when can I earn enough to return to China? It would be unbearable to tell the truth about the happenings on these slopes. Wait until the day I'm successful and can fulfill my wish. I will not be benevolent and will level and uproot the station.
I was born Wong Ho Long in Gamham Village, Sunning District, Guangdong Province. I come in 1914. I land in Angel Island Immigration Station, San Francisco Bay. Investigation 30 day. I come in San Francisco. My mother was one of only 3 China girls born in San Francisco in her time. Her name was Lei Sin Hai. My mother went back to China, where I was born. But my grandmother still had jewelry manufacture on Dupont Street. Then my father, he born in San Francisco, but he come to Riverside on early day, 1890. He's well known in Riverside. He was truck gardener, raising vegetable. All depend on China boy only. No Chinaman come, no vegetables. So they're very friendly. I make up my mind either come to Riverside or stay in San Francisco. My grandmother told me education was segregated, the Chinaman only. So I decide to come to Riverside.
Southern California, 1870. The cow counties. Dusty, desolate, backward. No railroad, no industry, no trade. In 1870, there are less than 200 Chinese in Los Angeles. But in the years that follow, Southern California will need the Chinese as never before, come to know them intimately, and use and discard them with characteristic indifference. 1871, a Chinese junk appears offshore at San Pedro. Chinese fishing villages spring up along the southern coastline. More Chinese, more persecution. 1871. In Los Angeles, 1,000 whites loot their city's Chinatown. Lynching 19 Chinese. 1874. Chinese crews extend the Southern Pacific at Los Angeles, north toward San Francisco, and east toward New Orleans. They sustain heavy losses in the Tehachapi Tunnel and across the Colorado Desert. The Atlantic and Pacific, the California Southern, a network of railroads eventually binds California, bringing with it more Chinese. 1880. By now, 20,000 Chinese live and labor throughout Southern California. 1870. A handful of aging abolitionists and temperance reformers plant an isolated colony on a windswept plain. They name it Riverside. They dig a canal 12 miles long to irrigate crops they hope will grow. They bank on hope, on 2 spindly seedless orange trees from Brazil, and on the skills of the Chinese.
In Riverside, the orange grower, the old-timer, always kept the Chinaman. They told me because they were faithful. From the sun rising work to sunset. Many in Riverside, thousands. No need to worry about the Chinaman. They do their day's work.
1880. The Riverside Fruit Packing Company reports 6 or 8 Chinamen turning out 2,500 2.5-pound cans a day. 1882. The block between 8th and 9th in Main and Orange is already called the Chinese Quarter. 1884. A visitor reports seeing hundreds of Chinese in the packing houses, chattering and laughing, washing, brushing, and sorting oranges. Wealth begins to flow out of the groves. Citrus barons learn to depend almost exclusively on the man known as the China Boy for domestics, cooks, and gardeners. While the Chinese grow in value, the pattern of hostility established in the goldfields reemerges. Riverside Press and horticulturist editor Luther M. Holt announces it formally. Let the war be commenced. It cannot be waged too vigorously. Drive the Chinamen out and tear down their filthy quarters.
The mayor of Riverside, Chinatown, is honorable job. First time they had one, his name Wong To. He was working the railroads. He ran the Highgate Company. After he retired, they put another man in, Wong Sing-gay. He took care of the Bank of Chinatown. But the white man kicked the Chinaman down here from Orange and 9th outside the 1-mile limit. Nobody wanted the property.
August 3rd, 1893. San Bernardino Times Index. Over in Riverside, a movement is afoot to solicit aid for the Chinese who were burned out of their reeking rookeries adjoining that city on Sunday night. August 7th, 1893. The Riverside Press and horticulturist ruefully reports that the devastating fire has not solved the so-called Chinese question. Work financed by Chinatown's most influential leader, Jin Dewey, has already begun on 2 sturdy brick buildings along Chinatown Street, a clear expression of permanence. The new buildings will soon house general merchandisers, laundrymen, vegetable grocers, and in the rear, hideaways for gambling and opium. Near the end of the street is the headquarters of the Chi Kung Tong, with its temple or joss house. Chinatown's population could vary with the seasons from no more than 400 to several thousand.
Long time ago, before I come to Riverside, before my time, Chinatown was bigger than American Town. Chinatown New Year, one of the big days. Pay up the bills, then 3-day celebration. Start all over the New Year. That's the custom in China. They kept it for 1,000 years.
The last 20 years of the 19th century show the greatest concentration of Chinese in Southern California. Riverside's Chinatown booms. But the Chinese are a marked people in Southern California, marked by their cultural unity, their quiet industry, their aggravating willingness to stay here, work here, without really being here. The early 90s are marked by a Great Depression, in which once again the working man seizes on the Chinese as a scapegoat.
The Chinese people years ago used to work in the grape fields. Cucamonga, that's the last Chinatown over there. Ontario run the Chinamen out. And Upland, they said the Chinamen labor too cheap. But if the Chinamen don't work cheaper, the white men would not hire them. They had no choice. They had no choice. The only way the Chinamen survive in the United States, they take a leftover.
August 20th, 1889. 500 Riversiders gather outside the Loring Opera House to protest the use of Chinese in the grape harvest. The mob decides to march on Chinatown. It is only when Bradford Morse, the marshal, threatens to call out Uncle Sam's boys that the crowd sulkily disperses.
Cucamonga, Chinatown, stay up until the last couple died. I remember the last time I was over there. It's pitiful. So I guess Riverside, the only Chinatown left.
September 6th, 1893. Sheriff's deputies began rounding up all Chinese in the Riverside area not registered as aliens under the Geary Act. Violation means deportation. Of 10 Chinese arrested, only 1 ever returns to Riverside.
My mother went back to China. My father just visited, so I was born there. In San Francisco, a drunkard kicked her. She never forget. That's why she didn't come back. She died about 15 years ago. I never see her again. She sent my father the letter she want me to go back to China, but he said if I go, he couldn't go and come back because of immigration. I remember that. He built up his name. Everybody knew him well, but he didn't have much accumulated. That's why I call the whites, I call it not gratitude. My father died in Riverside. Turn this off. No, you wait. I know who I am. I know what I want. I hope to get a good lease on the property. I do intend to build a pagoda building before I'm getting too old. I could sit in a wheelchair and dictate them anyway. I don't give up, you know. Now you can turn it off.
The Chinese contribution to Southern California was immense. Exploited as laborers, trapped by racism, they withstood lynch mobs, unfair taxation, ostracism. But the Chinese alone suffered a most insidious form of bigotry, exclusion and immigration regulations that stopped the entrance of new Chinese, especially women, into the United States. It was a society cut off, unable to renew itself, a biological clock winding down.
Actually inside of level 2. It had 2 on top and beneath it. So we called level 3 a lens of whatever this white stuff is. Or whatever. So this now, this hardcore stuff, if you look at the side, doesn't have anything in it. That's level 4.
Chinatown was going down in 1926. In 1921, it was going down. It was some I work at the Mission Inn. See, I coming down here on my bicycle. The sheriff come down Chinatown and he said, Sing Yi, that's Wong family. You have him come down to plead guilty. I said, for what charge? He said, for running a lottery. I said, because he refused to pay you? He said, oh, not so. I said, yes, it's so. The chief of police got his pay the first of the month.
Loretta, I've got a towel. Okay.
1928, Riverside Press. A few residents of Riverside heard a spasmodic popping of firecrackers down Chinatown Way last night. That was because Sing Ki stood at the front of his cafe and welcomed Chinese New Year by throwing a pack or two of the firecrackers into the gutter. Not any of the other old Chinamen who lived there joined in the welcome. They are forgotten men, those old Chinamen. Their homes are thousands of miles away, and they will never see them again. Their faces are wrinkled. Their partners are dead. They are not a part of our civilization, and they must be lonely.
The Ku Klux Klan always worry about the Chinaman. One night I was coming home early in the morning. There was old Studebaker Park on Brockton Avenue, next to Chinatown. I listened. Here come the Chinaman now. I said, what you want to see for? We're going to tar and feather you. So I run in the house, get hold of a gun. I open fire on them. They run like a bunch of bums, scatter all over the street, keep running. They left the car down here until 2 or 3 hours later. Chinamen in Riverside got fewer because the old generation died off. They have few dollars left. Some went up Stockton farming, which they failed. Some went up San Francisco, did not make it. Mostly they wishy-washy, left by night.
The inside or the outside or something?
I stay in Riverside, do a little work now and then. The depression was on. I couldn't get a job. I started a restaurant in Chinatown called Bamboo Gardens. A lot of those Air Force pilots, they always stop in the place. They like my specialty, smoked ribs. Barbecue, in this country they call it. I didn't go to the WPA. I'm very proud of that.
Luttez pas. Another one.
Okay, and Cindy on it?
I'll trade you this and my broken one for your soy pot.
No way.
No way.
Dear, no
Karen.
Karen.
Heck of a hard
Throw
bargain.
in the bottle with the Chinese characters and I'll
No.
take it.
No, that's a great find.
Is that how you tell Mary?
That's how I tell. And I've never been wrong, Joe. Never.
Yeah, no, I have that. Yes, I did buy it. Just because I
What's this unknown metal? Well, no, I think a lot of those are nails has been encrusted.
Well, yeah, the nails and I think parts of it are cars, though. Most definitely.
Yeah.
'Cause they're too big to be.
You know George Wong collected old cars. didn't
Yeah,
you?
yeah, you told me.
Yeah,
I want to find another light bulb intact.
Another light bulb.
What is that? Into the bottom? They're saving all the little pieces of glass.
Yeah, very small pieces. That's a good one.
Just like a little tooth.
The front wheel covers, you know, the grease caps on your front wheels.
This is more what I'm thinking of, yeah.
Oh, this is the round bottom.
Yeah, I don't think I've ever seen a round bottom one. Did you? Okay, well, you see, I don't think we got them anywhere else. We sure didn't get them at Donner Summit. We sure didn't get them at any of the sites we picked over.
Oh, shit.
Oops.
Don't show that.
Why not?
This is real archaeology. No sense in demolition archaeology.
Find something good.
There's nothing in here. You're going to wait a long time.
Sterile piece of ground right in front of you. You could work over here in this pit for a few minutes, huh?
Like taking a little bird out of its nest. Thank you very much.
Sure. Got some more pockets here.
Well, they're excess.
Okay.
For tonight's featured report, I went to Riverside, which is the first city in Southern California to pay tribute to the Chinese who settled there 100 years ago. In the late 19th century, the Chinese brought extensive knowledge of citrus cultivation to the young groves where they labored. But a modern city covered what was once their own community, and Riverside forgot its debt to the Chinese. Vince Moses is curator of the local museum. He was among the first to see the gap in the city's understanding of its own history.
When I came to work at the Riverside Museum in 1979, it was clear to me that we were doing a very good job of interpreting the elite culture of our area. but that we were missing the boat when it came to ethnic contributions, particularly with this ongoing kind of folk myth about the Chinese who lived here.
But this is not China. It is downtown Riverside, and the graceful pavilion taking shape here will honor not a single person, but hundreds of forgotten Chinese men and a handful of women who lived near this spot at the turn of the century. Indeed, events here have become something of a cause célèbre in Taiwan. 2 years ago, a delegation of dignitaries visited Riverside and exchanged vows of friendship with local officials. Coincidentally, the Great Basin Foundation of San Diego began a major excavation at the site of Riverside's Chinatown.
You had here in your hands the kitchenware, the ornamentation, the day-to-day utensils and other kinds of items used by these men as they tried to live out their lives in our community. It made us and put us in direct contact with their lives. It brought them alive.
One little boy, he stayed with me after he came over in 1919. He very loyalty. So I told him before World War II, you go back to Los Angeles. Riverside has no future.
Yeah. It's going to come up quite soon. Okay, that is a very good idea.
That would be really
Just
odd up here.
cut out
Way out here.
like the one half.
What's interesting, they got way out to the left.
It's down there.
I'm going to take a look at it.
How boring.
Looks like it's
Maybe they
from...
had clams.
Came up.
Yeah.
We could be wrong.
I don't know.
Maybe, yeah.
It's a saucer. What it looks like is a it has an indentation in the center like a tea saucer.
Yeah.
By World War II, Wong Nim and I last residence in Chinatown. After he died, I decided to transfer the property to my name. I own a share anyway, but in court, various attorneys tried to double-cross me. Riverside Cemetery Association bid against me. They all tried to get me. I told them, no hope. I win. I pay Wong Nim Estate $6,200. I figured 6-7 acre, still cheap. So I got my satisfaction. That's how I am where I am today. I stay in Riverside refuse to give in. My family name mean more than $1 million to me. That's why I stay in Riverside. Fought them all. First was dishonor. Taken Riverside 40-some years later back to honor. In China, all over the world, honor family tradition first. But the system in the United States changed that the white man dollar first. In England, in Europe, like a family still poor, but then them still honorable. It took them 40-some years. Respect. Respect. Mrs. D.P. Fullerton, Riverside, California. Dear Madam, may I take the liberty to express a few words in appreciation for burial of a countryman of mine in the summer of 1936. Several times you bring food, clothes, and money to Sam Logut. Logut doesn't feel good last 2 years since he was hit and run over. It seems whoever the unfortunate ones left behind in any Chinatowns either starve or some fatherly Samaritan come to rescue. I have been in the United States over 57 years. My sister still write to me once or twice a year. My sister figure I lose the touch of writing the Chinese language. She got someone to write in English, send it to me. 24 years pass. Your grandma never once went by Old Brockton Avenue without paying Chinatown a visit, just like grandmother to them all. Now, they're all gone. Now they're all gone. As the live one, I always remember your kindness. Sorry, missed the funeral. I salute you. G.L.H. Wong.